Hello and welcome to K Wave6Radio. This is your host, Kirk Spencer. I just wanted to insert a little note before you got into today's show, just to let you know that we had actually recorded the show about 2 weeks ago, but we had some problems with Skype, which you'll hear some of the problems here in the recording. I couldn't get rid of all of them, and some of them, if I had gotten rid of them, you would have noticed it even more so. Also, I have two audio panels on my computer. It was my mistake. I chose the wrong one to mute myself. Pat could not hear me coughing, but it came across on the recording, so I spent a lot of my time over the past 2 weeks just trying to get rid of the coughing, and I did as best as I could because to get rid of some of my cough, I would have gotten rid of some of what Pat was saying, and some of it has been muted or whatever, which you'll find out later on. But I couldn't let the show go because Pat was so very happy with what we were talking about and what was said. It was very impromptu, and we just wanted to share this with you. So please bear with us and pardon us and the mistakes that we have. We hope will not be repeated in the future. So we hope you like the show. Take care and be well. Hi and welcome to K Wave6Radio. This is Kirk Spencer. Today we're talking about from protest to proactive. This whole theory came about, or this whole show's title came about from talking with a friend of mine, which you'll hear at another show, who, like me, grew up during the 60s and the 70s, and when you used to hear a lot of protest songs on the radio, protesting society as it was, protesting the Vietnam War and a lot of the other things that were going on, but they were always protest songs, but never telling you about how to change it. There was a lot of, shall we say, protest marches. There were rallies and all that kind of things, and to a certain degree it worked. But these days, it's come back to being almost the same thing over again, but the only difference is, the only thing that people are saying is, quite unimaginatively, is, wake up, people, wake up. But once people do wake up and they start seeing what is going on, people are going, okay, I see it, it's a lot of mess, okay, but what are we doing about it? And nobody gives an answer. And the whole idea seems to be just sending emails and posting stuff on Facebook and Twitter, and here's the problem. We know the problem exists. What do we do? How do we get proactive about it? So some people are saying, okay, occupy Wall Street, occupy this place, occupy that place. And all it does is seem to get the police out and get pepper sprayed in the face and all this other stuff. So is there another way that even you as an individual, you, me, anybody as an individual can do something? And I know what you're thinking. How can I be effective? Well, there is one saying that I happen to really like. If you think that you can't do anything to make a change, try to sleep in a room with a mosquito. So today, with me on the show is my dear friend, kind of like my older sister. This is Pat Kammer of Love's Voice Changes You. She has more than one book out, and she'll tell you about that in just a moment. But Pat is one of those very warm people who has a great deal of knowledge and experience from her own life, and what she hasn't lived, she has read, or she has learned in her own ways how to apply it, and she does classes and all that kind of stuff, but I'll let her tell you that in just a moment. And she's going to share with us not only things that we protest, because we're going to talk about a lot of those things that we really hate, but also how to make a change into it. One last thing before I get into Pat. There is a video out, and at first I didn't want to watch it, and you can find this on YouTube, and it's talking about the psychotropic drugs that not psychologists because they can't do medicines, psychiatrists in the psychiatric industry, and I say industry on purpose because anytime you go to a psychiatrist and you can sit in front of them for 5 to 10 minutes and they go, okay, I think I understand your problem, here's a prescription, go take this drug, Prozac and all these other ones that I have no idea what the heck their names are, and people are actually committing suicide over it. They're feeling like they should commit suicide over it, but you notice that the psychiatrists never take a blood test to see if there is any chemical imbalances in your system. The video said there's no such, but there are. But they're not into curing. It's just trying to, okay, you're depressed? Here, take this. This will make you less depressed. Or here, take this. You're anxious? This will calm you down. But they don't go to find out what is the source of the problem. So at the end of the video, they actually tell you how to even talk with your psychiatrist about, hey, there is an alternative way, and by law they have to tell you there is an alternative way to seek help other than just drugs, but you have to ask. And this video is actually very good, so this is kind of what we're wanting to do with the show today. So anyway, without any further ado, hello Pat, how are you?
Hello. Are you saying I'm old when you say I've been around for a while?
Well, I can say that about myself. But
well,
yeah, I guess
old, that's for sure. But I'm getting better. I think I'm getting better at learning and questioning and all kinds of stuff.
Well, there's a lot to be said about experience, and that's why I threw in experience with that, because as we both know, just because you get older does not mean that you're getting wiser.
Well, no, but you know what? This world is supposed to be getting better. They're supposed to be experienced, but you know what? They're going to start to repeat the same old thing over again if they just start to fight stuff. Mm-hmm. If they're attacking things or marching for this or fighting, you hear fight cancer, fight this, fight that, march for that, and war over it. Well, what's that doing? It's just the same old, same old. They've been doing it for centuries.
Yes.
Do you think it's going to change the outcome now? I mean, it's nuts. There has to be a different way of thinking.
Exactly.
They're putting a Band-Aid on it, and by their complaining, what I call it is shooting on it. They're shooting on it. It shouldn't be this way, but it is. I mean, they say it's the worst kind of insanity to fight reality or to think or should on reality. Mm-hmm. Reality is, this is what we're into.
Yep.
So the question you're asking is, what do we do different? Well, you have to think totally different. You have to think totally different about how to approach this. I wrote a piece in my new book called Hello Awesome. It's Love's Voice in Pat Spatter's book 2. And it's called What's Wrong with the World and What Can We Do About It? This is a question a film producer, director, Tom Shadyac, I think it's Shadyac, he asked in his documentary entitled I Am, a film which received a 20-minute standing ovation at its screen. Something, because he does seem to have an answer. This guy, because he was doing films with people like Jim Carrey, became famous and he became very, very wealthy, And so being bought with that, a car, a jet plane, a 7,000 square foot home with every conceivable amenity and a circle of equally privileged friends. So this guy wasn't hurting by any stretch of the imagination. He had everything going as far as this world's goods are concerned. So anyway, he's standing in the foyer of his latest home as the movers had just left, and he was in the looking at his new home, surveying it, looking around the circular marble staircase, at the statues, at the crystal chandelier, and he discovered he was no happier. Mm-hmm. In fact, he really felt more disconnected, alone and unhappy than he ever had before. And he suddenly realized a person can only drive one car at a time. They can only occupy one space at a time. And he was hit with the awareness that if someone is out of freezing rain and snow with nowhere to sleep, a small log cabin with a roaring fireplace would be more precious and a source of happiness than any luxury that he was surrounded by.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of his first awakening. And so he sat down and asked himself, what's wrong with this world? And what is wrong with the world, and what could he do about it? He got the idea then to travel the world and ask this question. And he created a documentary based on the influential people that he met, starting with his own father, who along with Danny Thomas poured much of his wealth into St. Jude's Hospital so that kids with cancer could receive free treatments. He talked to people like David Suzuki, who is a Canadian, Canadian, Dean Wren, Lynn McTaggart, and many more. Always he posed this question, what's wrong with the world? And he would record the answers. And what he discovered was an astounding personal aha moment. He learned that he needed to pay more attention to how nature works and how indigenous cultures live in the harmony with the earth, in both nature and such cultures with man and beast. And he gathered this wisdom from the people he talked to, and how they got along with lack of refrigeration, because they would only kill what they needed in that culture because they didn't have any refrigeration, and they didn't take any more than what they needed, which was not the way he was living at the moment. He had more than what he needed. Mm-hmm. And so he learned from the observation that nature is very much a democracy. For instance, he noticed one time when he was in one particular country that there was a herd of animals in a field, and they're all grazing, and then one took notice that he needed for water. He pointed his nose in the direction to go to the watering hole, and then when 51% of the herd all pointed their nose in that direction, they immediately, in one fell swoop, all started to go that direction as a democracy. So, I mean, if we learned from the animals how to do things, we wouldn't be fighting and worrying about stuff. You see the same thing with the birds or a school of fish, where they all seem to wave in the sky or in the water in one instant. Everyone follows everyone else. There's no one fighting over the head one. They just change as one gets tired and drops off, goes to the tail end, the other one goes into the front end, right? Mm-hmm. So we can learn from nature itself how to get along in this world without fighting all the time. It's about when you should on things and say something is wrong or something is bad, needs to be changed, you are actually sending out negative vibrations. And we're all about energy and vibration. Everything in the world is energy. And interestingly enough, a couple of years ago, I was sitting in a group of women at a women's meeting. There was 40 of us in one room. And they were very studious on how this group was led. It had to be done in just a right way. And I have circles every week, and I just let spirit lead it, if you will. I start it and just let it go. But they had to have it in a particular way. And so the leader that day, who was chosen, had started it off by saying they wanted everybody to go around in a circle, and they were given a feather in their hand, and as long as they had that feather in their hand, they had the floor. They could talk as long as they wanted, then they passed it to the person next to them. Well, the question was that we were to ask ourselves, what's wrong in our world? We were to go over the things that were bothering us in the world. And I had just lost my husband just a month or two before, and I was in this group for the reason to be uplifted, if you will, and energized. Mm-hmm. When she asked that question, everybody's searching their mind about what's wrong in the world, and the energy in the room went down like a lead bullet. It was nuts. I mean, they were talking about how women are treated in other countries, children that are raped or hungry or going, starving, or all the diseases, rampages in the world. It was just mad. I mean, what one couldn't think of, they just went over what was already said, only added to it.
Sounds like they were just pointing the finger instead of talking about what's wrong with the world and where it starts with me.
Yeah, well, they weren't giving any answer to it. They were just pointing out, okay, the negative in the world. Well, we all know there's negative in the world. You just have to turn the news on every night, and you'll get lots of it. It's not that I have my head in the sand and don't realize what's going on in the world, but to me, that was no answer, because when your energy, and you study it, like I have studied it, I don't have all the answers, but I know this, that your energy can go on the other side of the ocean. It can go around the globe if you send it. And if you send the energy of healing and see, rather than women being tortured or children starving and war in the war zones, if you start to see grass growing, flowers growing, birds singing, children playing in those places, and you send that visualization or energy to that part of the world, you're doing it a whole lot better than bringing attention to what's negative.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, the answer is not pointing your finger at what's wrong and marching for it and bringing more attention and more energy and more power to it, but to visualize it as you would like to see it. And that way, I think we're all going to we would change the vibration of the world, because everything is one. We're all one energy. And the more people, like, the percentage grows as the awareness grows of how your energy works. And the more people who know that, the greater we're going to have the answer for this world. And, there isn't going to be any marches needed, because you'll just be changing the world by your energy and by your change of mind.
Yeah, there's something that I actually saw, and I actually love it. I need to actually copy this thing down, but I remember it pretty much word for word. It says, worrying is like praying for the things you don't want.
Yeah, for sure. Well, one expert scientist told that the very air we breathe in and out is the same air breathed by Jesus, Mary, Gandhi, Mother Teresa, as well as Hitler, Mussolini, and Jim Jones.
Yep.
It's the same air. And it's up to us to have the positive frame of mind and realize that we are greater than we know. We have more power within each one of us. That's why I call my book Hello Awesome, because you are awesome. You have to recognize it.
Oh, yeah. As a matter of fact, if I may, you were talking about sending energy around the world, and I don't know if the listeners here actually believe in that. I know there's going to be someone out there that's very skeptical, and being skeptical is not a bad thing. Being a denialist is not a good thing. And the reason why I say that now is I'm a Qigong master, and most people think of Qigong as something that you use for fighting. Well, you can use it for fighting, and you can also use it for healing. I'm not one who likes to fight, so I've always used this for healing, because I'm also a holistic therapist, as well as a martial artist. And I have sent energy literally. Matter of fact, just last week, a friend of mine up in Oregon, I live down here just outside of Mexico City, and he was complaining that his shoulder and his upper back was hurting him. And he had forgotten that I do this energy work, and I just sat here and I just concentrated what he wanted on his back and shoulder. And within 3 to 5 minutes, he moved it, and he said, wow, I don't know what that is, but that feels good. I spoke to him the next day, and he says, after you did that therapy, he says, I never had any more pain in my shoulder, and it's still not coming back. And I said, that's what you wanted, isn't it? Yeah. I've done this for people when I lived in Chicago for somebody I knew in Singapore. Same thing. It is something that, as Pat has been telling you, is something that you can control with your thoughts. As a matter of fact, that is pretty much the only real way to do it. Because first you have to think about it. Even if it comes down to a battery, you had to think about the battery, how to create it. If you want to do a generator, you had to think about the generator and how it's going to work and how much it's going to put out, so on and so forth. This is energy, and you, as a human being, have the ability. This is not something that's just a Some people used to say, well, you're blessed and you have been given gift by Creator and so on and so forth. This is something each and every one of us has the ability to do. This is what Pat is talking about when she says everything is energy. Nikola Tesla says, if you want to understand the universe, think of it as in energy and in frequency.
Well, Kirk, you may have quite a few people online who really doubt this. But when you really think of it, in the 15th century, people accepted the fact that the world was flat. It took them a long time before they would accept the fact that the world was round and they wouldn't fall off if they went far enough east or west. And, they laughed at anybody who said that the world was not flat. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't very long ago that they would laugh at anything a holistic medicine.
Oh, yeah.
It was not long ago they didn't even know what the word Reiki was or reflexology or any of those things. You had to explain it to everybody. Mm-hmm. There's a shift happening in the world. There is a new awareness. And, okay, I like to go where people are, and usually there's intelligent people on the line listening. If they rub their hands together, there's heat there. Mm-hmm. You feel it. Well, where did the heat come from? How did it get in your body? Where did you get your breath from? The doctor didn't give it to you. Your mother didn't give it to you. Where did it come from? Where did your life come from? And where does it go when it leaves your body, this heat? And if they know their law of physics, there is no end to energy. It has no beginning. It has no ending. Mm-hmm. It's like infinity. And so there is no death, really. There's a death to the flesh, the body that holds the spirit within us. There's a death to that, but there isn't a death to who we really are. And so that is the part we're appealing to. We're appealing to the higher nature of each person that's listening into this show. We're appealing to your common sense. And as soon as you get it, you start to realize that you are energy and that you have this ability to send this energy around the globe and even out into the atmosphere. You stop fearing so much. You stop fearing death. You stop fearing tomorrow because there is no time even. And you start to look at life differently. What can I do about it? It's right inside of you. It's not outside of you. We only believe what we see and hear and touch on the outside world. But that isn't the reality. The reality is inside you. The energy that's inside of you is what's real and everlasting.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you a question, because I came across this again just recently. And I want to get into talking about again just right at the moment. But you mentioned time. And I know quite a few of us have heard the expression, time is a river. But what I heard, and it reminded me of something I already knew, which is time is a river, but what most people don't understand is time is a river that it goes in circles, or it goes in a circle.
Everything does. Everything. You look at the drain, the water going down the drain. It goes in a circle.
Well, it's also thinking about fractals and whatnot, but going a little bit beyond that, because there's something that I read back in the late 1980s, and it was some information that says we are in a cycle. Time is a cycle. This was the way it was written. Time is a cycle, and right now our society, or as it was saying, your society is in the cycle of when the Roman Empire fell. Everything is falling apart. Everything is going into chaos. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, because I think we need to expect that there's going to be an unraveling. The change of spirit in the knowledge that we're getting with inside of us, the outside is surrounded with secrets, the lies that we've been told, the incomplete stories, even our history. If you look at everything, it's touching everything. The governments, of course, we already knew that they were a little bit shady, but it's all coming out, and we're seeing it for sure, what's happening. It's being told. Because now we've got the advent of social media. We've got computers. We have things now in this day and age we never had before in our life, in any age, so that it goes around in somebody gets shot or something and it's around the world, the blood isn't even dried, for goodness sakes. It's on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's, Skyped it to somebody or emailed it.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it's unraveling education. They're having a hard time getting caught up because history has to be changed. They're finding more. They've got the tools to find things and to find out how old it is compared to what we used to know. We're finding things in the rocks and the earth that we never unearthed before that are disproving our past
conceptions.
History. Yeah, that what we've been told is not complete and not correct. Our geography has to be changed. We're finding out our maps are not correct. We're finding out that everything in life, even education, our medical is all nuts. It's coming apart at the seams, and people are getting afraid. But they need to realize this is how it has to happen. That you have to get out the old before the new can come in. You have to cleanse out what is false, what's wrong, what's negative, to bring in the new, the positive, and the healing.
Let me ask you a question here. We're talking about time and how it runs in cycles. Now, having any information about civilizations before what we call written history is basically pointing out things like Lemuria and Atlantis and other civilizations that existed before what we have as written knowledge. I don't know how much you know about this, whether it's written or something that you know deep within your own soul, but I have this distinct feeling, and some of what I've read actually justifies this distinct feeling of mine, that those civilizations, Atlantis, Lemuria, and other places, they went through a cycle of, greatness, and their civilization started crumbling and falling apart. And this was just before their, if you want to use the word, deluge. Could be, I'm going to ask you this question, do you think that it could be along the same lines?
Well, if you, funny you should mention that, because I'm going to be going to something this weekend on Lemuria that's channeled information. I don't know what I really believe, because the past is not here. There's no one can tell you. There's no movies taken of it so that you can say, okay, this is for sure because I saw it. You're only going by other people's stories on things, whether it's true or whether it isn't. What I've learned in my travels is there's only two emotions, love and fear. And everything is about love. And people get into trouble when they allow the ego to drive them. And any civilization goes awry when the ego is running it. And government is one great big ego. And there's a whole lot of egos running government that are fighting each other for power. It's all about power.
Yep.
And if we were a democracy like animals are, like I mentioned to you before, and we went by an inner drive of the love for water, and we all went to it when everybody was in agreement, there would be no fighting. There would be no vying for power and to get ahead of the pack. But we have forgotten how to do that. We let our egos run us, and we get into fear if we're not ahead of everyone else, and that's where we all get into trouble. So, this unless we realize who we all are as spiritual beings connected to God, and this has got nothing to do with religion. It's a fact. We are a part of the energy, which is God. And you can turn that backwards and call it DOG if you want. I don't care what you call God. It's an energy, and we're all a part of it. And as soon as you think you're not, and that you're alone, and you have to fix this world, and you got to do it yourself, you get afraid. And so everybody's vying for power because of that. Get them before they get me, right?
Yep.
And so, and this population right now, we're destined to go into the same thing unless we who know better spread the light and they get to realize who they really are, and that will end wars, that will bring peace, and that will bring love. It won't be outside of us, it will be inside of us. From what I've learned about time, I agree with you, everything's a circle. I really do. Every cell in our body's a circle. Mm-hmm. Every thought, everything that goes out from us comes back to us in like manner and in like strength. And except when you think of time as linear, and a past, a present, and a future. And then when you think of that, you're going to make stories up, especially when it's your own personal past. You had this happen, you had that happen. This was a good thing, that was a bad thing. So you get into duality thinking. And you only think of it from this point of view in the present moment about the past, and you make stories about it because you were much younger then, or whatever. It's most of the things that happened when we were children, or when we first got married, or whatever. This was wrong, that was wrong, and da-da-da-da-da-da. So we make stories up, and we have grievances, and that's what gets us into a lot of trouble as far as our own bodies are concerned. So, and then you try to anticipate what the future is going to be, if it's going to be like our past, so we get into fear about that. And the only safe place, and the only place that's real, is in the present moment. And I like to think of time as being holographic. It's vertical. It's not horizontal. Mm-hmm. And when you think of that way, fear goes out the window, because right this minute I'm sitting here talking to you, and I'm perfectly fine.
Uh-huh.
You know?
Let me ask you this real quick. Explain what you mean about vertical versus horizontal.
Well, it means that you've got lots of lifetimes, and whether you believe in reincarnation or not, it's like you've been every gender, everything that could possibly happen to you or with you or from you has happened, so that you've learned everything as a soul. And it's holographic. It's like a vertical spiral, if you will, where all lifetimes are happening simultaneously.
In other words,
so,
a fractal.
Yeah, and we're just happy to be aware of this very second that we're talking with each other, and the people who are listening are hearing it at this moment. So This is the only moment that's really real for them. The past is gone. The only truth about it is not here, and the future's not here either. But holographically, everything is happening simultaneously in this second.
You have me smiling, which you know what that means.
I don't know. You're either making fun of me or you're agreeing with me.
No, I'm agreeing. I'm smiling.
Okay.
If I'm making fun of you, I'm laughing. But no, I'm either that or I'm laughing with you, which is not making fun of you. But,
okay.
I wouldn't do that anyway.
Doesn't matter if you did. You know what? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't. No, it doesn't
really. If everybody who's listening think I'm really out to lunch, I'm nuts. Or maybe I have something going here. Doesn't really matter to me, because I'm not the author of this or the sponsor of it. I get my information from a higher place.
Yeah, exactly.
They play with that if they want to.
Yeah, and that's why I was talking about it earlier in the show when I was introducing you. It's just through experience. And I know you well enough to know that it is through experience that you give this information, which is why I invited you to be on the show, and again from last year. I'm laughing actually, or smiling actually, because I'm thinking about the old thing when I used to give metaphysical seminars, is that, and I've alluded to it earlier in the show, which was there's nothing that I or anybody can teach you that's new. We can only remind you of things that you had forgotten. That's what you're talking about when you're saying you've learned it as a soul. You just needed to remember it in this lifetime. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, when the truth is in you, and when the truth meets the truth, they become buddies.
Yeah, and for those of you who are listening, this is where you come up with that, and I know you've heard this expression one way or another, is what we call the aha moment. Ah, I knew that, and you don't know where you knew it from.
Yep, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, and it's getting to the root, and that's why we'll never get our answers out of us. We'll never get the answers out there, because there's too many opinions.
Yep.
Too many opinions. There's too many labels. We are not a label. We may belong to a church, and it has a label. Mm-hmm. And if your label doesn't agree with my label, then we're at odds with one another.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't join that. You know, if you're looking at things from your point of view and you see it the way you see it, I don't make you wrong. You see it. There's no way I'm going to change your mind.
All right, there's something we're going to get back into. I have a couple of topics I want to ask Pat to actually give us some information on what she believes on this. But we're first going to take a little break, so please stay with us, and we'll be right back with my guest, Pat Kammer of Love's Voice Changes You, and what's the other book title?
Hello, Awesome.
There you go. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Hi, and welcome back. My guest today is Pat Kammer of Love's Voice Changes You, and the other book?
Hello, Awesome.
There you go. Hello, Awesome, people that are listening. We left off talking about energy and talking about memories, the soul, and how time and all this stuff exists. I'm going to come back and actually I had written down 3 things, but I'm not going to do it in the order that I came up with. I want to start with, because we left off with life as a hologram and we're living it vertically and as a fractal. And there's something that actually I heard George Carlin talking about it, and I had already thought about this a long time ago, but it was nice to hear George Carlin because he always has a comedic way of putting it. Time is, we're always living in we live in the present, but the present is fleeting in the way that he put it. Okay, and I'm going to put it the way that he put it, and then Pat, you can make your comments on it from there. He says, we cannot talk about the past, and living in the past is what depression is, because we're always thinking about, oh man, I shouldn't have done that, and oh, I wish I had done that, and you get depressed because you're always thinking about what could have been and what I should have done. That's depression. Anxiety is just the opposite, is thinking about, God, I got to do this, and if I don't do that, this is going to happen, and that's going to happen. We're always thinking about the negative. That is the anxiety. When we're talking about living right now, you have this moment and the immediate future. Because you say, if I want it right now, he puts it in his comedic role. He says, what time is it? What time is it now, or when you asked me?
So true.
Yeah, okay. But time is just a way to measure, in our case, what time does the sun rise, what time does the sun fall, so on and so forth. And if you actually think about it literally, what time do we rotate around to the sun, and what time do we rotate away from the sun? So, okay, putting it in that literal sense, but nonetheless, you have the moment you're in right now. And, well, Pat, I'm going to let you elaborate on it from there.
Well, that moment's already gone.
Yes.
So time is an illusion, and I've lived enough of it to realize just how that's true.
Uh-huh.
When you think about it, there's things right around you that are so changed. I mean, in your town you're living in. Where I live right now in Canada, I've been here for over 60 years. There are bridges now that weren't here when I first came here. There are bridges. There's railroad tracks that weren't here at one point. Where we used to live was in a small apartment. And when we were in that apartment, we fought, we laughed, we cried, the whole 9 yards, all the dramas were going on in this apartment. I go by that place now, and it's now, we haven't been there in over 40 years. It's now a park. There's no such place. And there's a statue put up there. I keep imagining that's a statue of us because it's a group of people and they're happy. And I try to think of the happy times that was in there. But I know there was a lot of sad times. But it's an illusion. And if you want to take your moments that you're living right now and live them in a drama, you will be thinking about them, maybe or not, a week or two later, and you'll think, what was that about? The crap you were going through, the arguments you had. You don't even remember what it was about.
Yep.
So I find, thinking the way I think about time, I live in the moment. I have a joy in the moment. I sure plan for the future, but I leave it very flexible, and I leave it in God's hands. I say, this is what I want. This is what I do. I plan for it, get my ticket, whatever, go, and then leave the rest in God's hands about it, But so many people are living off in the future or regrets, as you say, in the past. I like to say it's shoulding on it. I won't should on you if you don't should on me, And I say that to people, like, you should read that book. It's dandy. And I said, you know what? I maybe shouldn't because maybe that I'm not ready for that book. Maybe it won't speak to me at all. And so I've learned not to should on anybody, especially the past. I should have done this, or I should have said that. You know what? You did exactly what you were supposed to do. You did the best you knew how. You might have made mistakes. I did. I made mistakes. And the person who was at the receiving end of my mistakes had to learn from it. Maybe it was God's planning. I like to think that everything happens for a reason. And that nothing happens that isn't supposed to happen. And even your mistakes, even there were really horrible mistakes, you can't kill people. People don't die. They go to another space, if you will. They're still here, but they're in a different realm, if you will, a different dimension. So even death is not a mistake. So if you let your mistakes go and you live only in joy and not in regrets, and you let your grievances go, because I'll tell you something, there is more cancer caused by grievances than anything external. I believe that with all my heart, because everyone has cancer cells, and the experts don't seem to know what causes the cancer to clump together, the cancer cells, and become cancerous. I believe it's a grievance that you can't forgive. The should on somebody else. They should have been different, and they weren't. Instead of getting the lesson from that person, and I see people who are maybe negative in your life as the ones who are your greatest teacher. And if you don't appreciate that, you will should on it, and you will have grievances, and you will hurt yourself. Because what goes out will come back, just like you say, it's a circle. And so if you stop shooting on it, forgive it, and realize that there really isn't anything to forgive, it was all according to plan, and you were to learn from it, and you know what? It's a lesson, and if it doesn't learn, it'll keep on coming back. Have you noticed how that happens? It keeps on coming back, and again, and again, and again, especially with family members. The same thing happens over and over again, and you have to stop and say, there has to be a different way of looking at this. This has to stop. How can you stop it? By asking, how can I look at this differently? How can I see this different? How can I react to it different? Because I don't know if you realize it, but I remember my friend, a relative would say something that would get push my buttons, and then I knew exactly what I was going to say back, and I knew what they were going to answer me back, and the same old argument would happen over and over and over again, until you stop it with, how can I think about this differently? How can I think about it with love rather than fear and need to be right? If you need to be right and make the other person wrong, you're both going to end up in anger, and it'll keep on coming around until you finally get it. Yeah, that's how I look at it.
Yeah, no, that was one of my little notes I had written down here. It says, making mistakes, growth and growing, learning what we didn't learn before.
Mm-hmm.
And when I actually wrote that, I started laughing, not at you, but I was laughing at my thought, going, okay, the politicians that are out there, it's like, when are they going to learn?
Well, they're there to live. They're a mirror of ourselves.
Uh-huh.
And when you look at other people who you're thinking about that, you have to think about yourself. Where is it in me? It's the same as what's I see in them.
Mm-hmm.
And, people in our life are showing us ourselves.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's that old saying of which you oftentimes find that you're angry about somebody else happens to be a reflection of you.
You know what anger is? Isn't it funny? I've got the patter that I wrote in Hello Awesome. I've just opened up to it.
Before you read it,
yeah,
tell us again, because this is a new show and I know other people don't know. What is a patter?
Okay, a patter is a script from hypnosis. I do hypnosis. And if you go online, you can get hypnotic patters for, say, quitting smoking or for getting someone to get over low self-esteem and this sort of thing. It's a script that goes into the subconscious mind for change. So when I started to ask spirit questions, I would get back answers from the higher source of myself, which everybody has access to. They just don't pay attention to it. And I write short chapters I call patters, because they're actually me asking a question, coming up with a problem, if you will, and spirit answering it. Mm-hmm. So that's why I call it patter.
There you go. Thank you. No.
So I ask why people are so angry, and anger is an attempt to make another person wrong. Think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as you try to make them wrong in anything, there's an anger in trying to convince them to your way of looking at things. And if you really, when you get to think of it, how lucrative, how crazy that is, and absolutely insane, that you can think you're the total answer to everything and you're right about everything. The only one who's right about anything is spirit.
Mm-hmm.
You have to get that answer from the higher part inside of you.
Mm-hmm.
So now the fact is we're never really angry about what we think we are, because we may have just got mad because somebody cut us off in traffic, when really what we're really angry about is something that your husband or wife said to you before you even got out of the house, that you feel really like you don't amount to anything in their opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And or you burnt your toast or whatever. So it's not about the person who cut you off. It's more about, because when you're feeling really good about yourself, you got on a diet and you're losing weight and you're really positive for yourself, you're feeling really fantastic, no matter who cut you off.
Yep.
You wouldn't be angry. I don't get angry very often.
No.
I really don't.
Let me see. There's something else. Oh, yeah. You mentioned this a little bit earlier, and you're talking about cancer. And there's a nice little saying with this, where it says, growing for the sake of growth is the ideology of cancer. The whole idea behind this expression, growing for the sake of growth is the ideology of a cancer cell, is that, yeah, I got the money, I've got all this, and matter of fact, there's another guy, and I don't remember his name, he got rid of the boat, the house, and the cars, and all that, and he gave it away to charity, and he is now traveling around the world and helping those people who need the help. I would assume that he's taking the money and giving it to these communities. And there's another guy, a millionaire who was a millionaire or billionaire, I forget who it was, but he gave away 90% of his, somewhere like 90% of his income. He only saved $2 million for himself.
Oh my goodness.
And
just $2 million?
Yeah, just $2 million.
Oh,
well, I don't know if he still owns the company or whatever he has, but he saved that. I would imagine it's just for, his expenses, whatever. for business expenses, kind of like the owner of Costco. He owns it, and Costco's all over well, I wouldn't say all over the world, but I know it's all over the Americas. We've got one down here in Mexico, or more than one, but we've got one in Mexico City, or at least one. And the man only takes home a salary of $300,000 a year because the business pays for everything else. And he gives his employees a higher rate than what Sam's Club and all the rest of these guys do. Mm-hmm. And it's just how much is enough, and then how much is too much. So if you're just growing and you're building these houses 7,000 square feet for two people, why?
Well, the thing is, we have everything we need. If you have the right attitude and your energy, and spirit is energy, I like to think I can just visit Spirit's mall, if you will, without any checkout. Mm-hmm. And I want something, and I'll say, this is what I want, and if it's in my highest good and best interest, I'm expecting a please, thank you very much. Mm-hmm. And it's like going over and turning a tap. Somehow it's there. I know that sounds crazy for most people who are probably listening. Yeah, right, you don't pay my rent or whatever. But you know what? We're looked after. Usually. I've never been without, even when I was without.
As an effort to actually explain on the other side of things, okay, people, you're listening to the show, you're wanting to know, okay, what's one of those things that, okay, I'm awake now, I'm willing to wake up, whatever the case may be, how do we make the change? This is one thing that Pat has just been talking about, and she just gave you an example from her own life, so let me do the same from mine. I grew up in the United States, as you couldn't tell by my accent, and in the United States, even some of the people that I grew up with, it's always talking about stocking food for this and stocking this for that. And now it's going a little crazy for those people who are thinking, oh, the economy is going to crash and we're going to need this. And they're stockpiling food and toilet paper and rice and whatever they feel is necessary. And what it really boils down to is all you need is one earthquake, all you need is one volcano, all you need is one huge tornado, and if you live close to the ocean, one huge hurricane to come along, and everything
tsunami.
Yeah, everything that you stockpiled is gone.
Yeah.
And or buried, or you're not even home when it comes, so now who knows who's eating all this food or whatever else that you stockpiled. And let me stop there for a moment, because my mother, who at one point when I had a motorcycle, she was asking me, why do you have a motorcycle? And I used to not only just ride it around in town, I literally went from one coast to another on my motorcycle. Why? Because I loved the thing. It was 1100 cc's, big engine. And she says, don't you feel insecure on it? I said, actually, I feel more secure on a motorcycle than I do in a car. And she goes, why? I said, I don't have a false sense of protection with having a lot of metal around me. I'm looking around all the time through the mirrors, what's in front of me, what's beside me, what's behind me. And on top of it, as you're saying, Pat, I'm always talking with Spirit and just going, this is what I need, this is what I need, this is what I expect, and I am enjoying this. Part of what we're talking about here in the show today is I am. Okay?
Yeah, you want me to kind of boil it down? It's all about knowing who you are. It's knowing who you are and realizing that you're so loved. That's why I say, you're awesome. You are awesome because you have this power of love. And you are loved. You're protected, you're guided, and you're guarded. And well, they say there are no atheists in foxholes. And when you need it, you call out. Why do you have to come to the place where you are blocked into a corner to call out, or to call Spirit within you? Spirit just wants to know, what do you want? He wants you to be, he, she, it, wants you to be happy, wants you to be joyous, and wants you to be fulfilled, and to have all that will make you joyous and happy. So what do you want? And you're afraid to ask. You're loved. What would you do if there was no excuses and there was nothing hindering you? And even if you have people to look after and problems standing in the way, what would happen if you wanted that and that could be worked out? You leave the how in God's hands. So I say, Spirit, I want XYZ. Okay, then follow my path. Follow what I show you what to do. Take one step at a time when I show you. That's the only time you move. The rest, I'll just get the ducks in a row. People say, where they ask, thinking, I never got any answer. Well, Spirit doesn't drop it in your lap, bang, like that. It's done step by step. And when you ask it, they may take a time where they have to put people in place or things in place before you can get what you're wanting. And sometimes you have to have an answer right away, and it's usually forthcoming. For me, it has been.
Uh-huh.
I've never been without. Even when we were in poverty, something happened because you're loved. Something happened. Even our own limitations got in the way. We got help somehow. And when their houses got blown down, they lost their money. Somehow, people, when they keep the faith, they get their money back. They get a house, and they get back on their feet if they just ask.
Oh,
That's the problem. They don't ask. They don't believe that they're worthy to be answered. Then they don't feel loved, and so they feel disconnected. They don't feel like they are a child learning. We are all children learning. We trip and fall every once in a while, and we just get up and go on, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you know you're connected, and you know you're one with God, and you know you're loved, you've got that relationship going. It's like a family, only it's you and God. And you say, God, Father, whoever, I need such and such. And he has the wherewithal to give you whatever you want. He's not going to give you something that's going to harm you. It's going to do that for the highest good. So ask for that, for the highest good of me and for everyone attached to me, and for the universe.
You got me smiling again.
Yeah. Okay. And it always works. It always works. You're always answered.
Let me give you my experiences, actually, and I'm going to actually give you, the listener, some experiences that I had while I was hitchhiking around the United States not too awfully long ago. I was going through Albuquerque, New Mexico back in 2003. And I wasn't hitchhiking at that time, but I stopped off. I was on a bus, and the bus had a layover of about an hour and a half. So I said, I'm tired of this food that you're getting in bus terminals, so let me just go and see if I can find something, because we're in the downtown area, see if I can find some food. Relatively quick, but not a fast food restaurant. So I found a little place, and I ended up talking to the manager of this place, and who told me that she was originally from, I believe it was Washington State. And she had just gotten her law degree and decided she got tired of where she was living, so she packed up and decided she wanted to go, I forget what state she wanted to go to. And when she got to Albuquerque, her suitcase was stolen, and inside the suitcase was all her money and her clothes and whatnot, so she was left basically broke and homeless. So she went into a homeless shelter for 2 weeks. And within 2 weeks' time, she was out, and she had an apartment, or she got an apartment, and she ended up working for this restaurant. Started off at one level, and she ended up working herself into management level. And this is what Pat's talking about, and it's just, you fall down, you get back up. You don't sit there and go, I'm not worthy, and I can't get up, and, no, I'm sorry, you can't push the button and go, come help me, I've fallen and you can't get up. Well, if you're going to do that, there's no pushing the button, it's just saying, Spirit. Now, Pat and I use the word Spirit because for some people, they get tired of hearing the word God, because God for many people is somebody's trying to proselytize me. No, this
is generic.
Yeah. Yeah. Besides the fact, if you look in the Bible, in the book of Genesis, nowhere will you find in there that God created a religion and said, this is how you have to worship me. Okay? He just left it open to, as Pat has been saying throughout all this, through the indigenous peoples and other people who just learned to, hey, this is spirit. Some people say great spirit, others have different names, but this is our great-grandfather. This is our grandfather. This, Native Americans will say that. Everybody's got a different way of saying it, so we're just saying it in general terms, and it's not a slight to our Creator. Creator, source, spirit, grandfather, spirit, whatever you want to use, that's it. But you address your concerns. And I like to have conversations with spirit. Why? People always say, I just pray and then I get up and walk away. And I said, yeah, what you're doing is you're bringing to God a wish list. This is what I need, this is what I want, and you get up and walk away and you never stop to listen. Sometimes you get an answer back that only you can hear. There's so many ways to do things in life, and if you're connected, and Pat has said this many times so far in the first hour here, we're about to take an hour break. She has said it so many times that if you are connected, you will have everything that you need. Is when you feel disconnected, when you want to deny that this is existing, then that's where you have the separation, and you're the one who's going, nothing's going right, nothing's going the way that I want it to, or the way I think it should go. But you're not connected to what is going on, at least not consciously.
Can I add something that
Please
is
do.
Kind of practical? I like to live this practically, If it doesn't work day to day, I can't talk with certainty or confidence.
Uh-huh.
I teach people spirituality every week. And one of the things I tell them, all problems are solved. All problems are solved. You come against a problem, you say that, it's like hitting that magic solving button, the easy button that you see advertised, you on top of it, and it's easy.
Mm-hmm.
I like to visualize that in my mind when I have a problem. I'm side of the road, my car stopped, and you say, okay, this problem is solved. There's two ways to solve it. Somebody will come on.
Hello? Pat? Uh-oh. We lost her here.
And then somebody comes along that knows all the things to do and get you on the road in 5 minutes. And this has actually happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
And last year I was in China. And we were coming back, and I kind of overbought. I bought a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to even buy an extra piece of luggage to bring it all back in. And so anyway, I get to Canada, where that's the part where I had to work, and I have to write down what I have bought, how much, and I'm only allowed $800, and I have $2,600.
Mm-hmm.
Oh! I said to Spirit, I'm not going to lie. I'm going to put the right amount down here, and I don't want to pay duty. Okay, is that can you work that out? So anyway, I wrote the right amount down. I get to the checkout, whatever lined up. And there's a young fellow taking our papers, and he says, is that $26? I said, no, it's $2,600. Go in that line up over there. Yeah, I wasn't going to go with everybody else. They put like $799 or something,
Uh-huh.
So anyway, I get in the lineup. I get up to the desk, and the gentleman says, where are you coming from? I said, China. And he said, is that $26? I said, no, that's $2,600. He says, go on through. I looked up, and it's a Chinese man.
Huh.
I'd come from his country, and I'd spent all that money in his country, and for some reason, that was okay with him. He just said, go on through. And my friend, who was in another lineup, she didn't even buy as much as I did, and it cost her $135 duty.
Right.
So I just said to myself, this problem's solved, you're going to solve it, and you work it out. And he did.
Uh-huh.
And another one, I get into another lineup, and then this same great big huge suitcase with zippers around it, so it has different levels.
Uh-huh.
And I had bought this thing to put my gizmos in to charge it, and it had batteries in it. And one of the things I didn't realize is you don't put anything with batteries in it in your luggage. You put them on the carry-on. But I had it in this piece of luggage, and it was right dead center. I didn't know where it was. I didn't even remember where I put it. If I get to they take me aside, says there's something in your luggage, it's just questionable. You have to go in the other room. So I go in the other room. I said, Spirit, I don't want to monkey around here. Find this thing. This problem is solved. I unzip it, reached in. There it was, right in the very middle. Pulled it out, and I was out of there in about 2 minutes. and this very same friend who got charged $135 is in there when I went in, and she was in there when I left. They couldn't find the problem. And I'm thinking, I ask. All you need to do is ask and realize you're his child. Yes. He will answer you, but you need to ask.
Can I say something here that makes it sound a little funny, but it's actually, I know most people have seen the movie, or especially the older people, from Star Wars, the first one, where they were going through some border guards, and they were wondering how they were going to get through, and Obi-Wan Kenobi says, don't worry about it, and they got through. And the thing throughout the whole movie is, may the Force be with you.
Yes, yes.
And this is basically saying what you're saying is the Force is God. Energy is a force. Before we go into a break, I have your book here, Love's Voice Changes You, and I just opened the book to page 90, and it's the center paragraph, and I'm going to read this just as we go into break. Although I had a long way to go to attain wisdom, the shift was a first step in waking up to my potential and in learning to be captain of my own ship. It was, and still is, up to me to change my thoughts and to see things differently before change happens. With that, please stay with us. We'll be right back. We're just going to take an hour break, and we'll be back in about a minute to 2 minutes. And remain with us, and we'll be back with Pat Kammer.
Do you need a website or a webmaster for your business or hobby, a wordsmith for a research project, or for a script, an article, or even a language translator? Do you need an audio or visual project created or edited? Contact K Wave6 Productions at www.kwave6productions.tk for all of your website, writing, and audio and visual needs. Our rates are competitive and our services are excellent. That's K Wave6 Productions at www.kwave6productions.tk or email us at info@kwave6productions.tk.
Hi, and welcome back to K Wave6Radio. Today, my guest again is Pat Kammer of Love's Voice Changes You, and as we've done so far in this in our segment is, what's the name of the second book?
Hello, Awesome.
There you go.
You know what? You don't remember that? You don't feel awesome enough.
No, I do, but it's just I like to have you saying it. I think you say it better than I do.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Okay. Hello, Awesome. But yeah, anyway. Anyway, Pat and I started into a conversation during the break, and we both decided, better off just saying this on air. But we're talking about how, even before the break, how to actually make things work in your life. So this is part of the solutions that we're talking about, or being proactive. I was telling her, I said, every day I get up and I say, this is what I want for the day, and this is what I'm willing to participate in, and I'm always willing to participate in the day because I don't treat, in my own words, I don't treat our Creator like a genie in the bottle, which is, I want this, I want that, and I expect to get it, and, you get your 3 wishes for the day and you're done. No, it's something that sometimes you just have to be a participant in it. Now, I used to say, I used to give an example when I was doing metaphysical seminars, that if you're without a job, You just don't get up and you pray and go, okay, I want a job, then get up and turn on the TV and watch Oprah and then whatever else is daytime TV. You get up and you go out and you get a job. And a friend of mine at that time told me, says, well, at one point, a friend of mine and I were talking. She was talking about her friend. She says, a friend of mine and I were talking about, we need $5,000 just to get something started. And they were at her house, and they were just sipping on wine, looking TV or listening to music, whatever it was. And somebody came up and rang the doorbell. She went to the doorbell, went to the door and answered it. And somebody, in making a longer story short, gave her $5,000 because they felt impressed to do so. And these people did not, or this person did not know this person, maybe not, at least not as a friend. And it was one of those things of, when we make decisions about what Spirit will and will not do, we run into another problem. Because if we're saying that Creator created everything that we know and things that we don't know, but saying, well, he or she, whatever you call Spirit, won't do this, or Spirit won't do that, or God won't do this, and God does it like that, then you're limiting someone who created you into the box that you've created. And I'm quite sure you don't like it when somebody puts you into a box and going, well, this person is that way and this person is that way, and you're going, I'm not that way. I'm quite sure you don't like it. So what do you think that you should be able to put your Creator into a box and saying, this is what he will or will not do, or like, or whatever the case may be? So with that, I'm going to stop. And Pat, you want to take it from there?
Well, it sounds pretty incredible when you say they wanted money for a business and someone knocks at the door. It's like plunk, it's down on your lap. That isn't usually the way things happen. Mm-hmm. I mean, you want to go into business. That's an idea you got in your head. Is that a powerful desire that would thrill your heart, that's inside of you? Well, you have to realize that whenever you got a dream inside of you and it's really wanting to get outside of you, that's usually put there by Spirit. Mm-hmm. When it's that one, it's going to really do a good thing for you. But there's a time element there. There might be, you might have a place all lined up where you want to put this business. Mm-hmm. And then the door closes on it. Bang. It's not going to happen. Your heart sinks. Well, God hasn't answered me. This is not going to happen. Well, that could be that it's not supposed to happen at that time and not that place.
Exactly.
The thing is, we want what we want, we think, and it's a deep desire within us, and Spirit put it there, but you have to leave the details in God's hands. You don't should on it. You should do it this way. That's arrogance. The arrogance of the Spirit thinks, I know how to do this. You don't know how to do it. You don't know how to fix it or anyone or anything. Mm-hmm. You say, this is desire that I have in my heart. You've put it there. Now, please do your thing. Show me what I have to do in it and what you're, and go for it. And leave it. Don't keep harping. And if it doesn't come together, see it as a blessing. Mm-hmm. That there's something better in store, and the door is slammed on it for a reason. That goes with people who have somebody they line up that they've fallen in love with, and the other person doesn't feel the same way. And this person should, right? They should feel like I do, but they don't. Mm-hmm. So, the insanity is that we insist on having our own way. And you do so at the detriment of your own soul in your own life. Because if you get your own way, it could be the worst thing that ever happened for you.
Yes.
There again, you get back to you are loved. You are absolutely loved. And guess what? Spirit knows the end of the book. The end of the book is perfect. The end of the book has you coming out shining and smelling like a rose. But if you insist on writing the end of the book yourself, you're going to be in for a big disappointment if you do it that way.
I found in my experience that Creator has a great sense of humor.
Exactly.
And sometimes I am the butt of the humor.
Yeah.
But lighthearted. Yeah. Lightheartedly so.
Yeah.
Because talking about what you just said, it's when we get, sometimes Spirit will say, okay, that's what you really want, want, fine, I'll let you have it. And just as you said, it's one of those things of, oh man, I wish I hadn't gone down this road.
Yeah.
And then if you're like, well, through my experience, because I do look forward to my conversations, and you don't talk about people that think you're really nuts. When I tell people I have conversations with Creator, they go, really? And I go, yeah, and what did you think all the prophets of the Bible did and whatnot? They had conversations. So what makes you any different? Why, you can't listen, or have you not tried, or you just don't believe it's possible?
They may not get it the same way, but they're getting it.
Yeah.
I remember the same thing happening for me, and I never asked questions in the way I do now.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware that it was being answered, but I really was.
Yeah. Well, those things that I've asked for, and he just said, well, you really want it? Okay, here you go. And
Yep.
I get it, and I go, oh, man. And then I just, okay, I shouldn't have had that. No, you shouldn't have. You learned your lesson? Yeah, got it. Okay, you want to do it my way? Yeah, no problem.
For now
Let's
until
do
the
it.
next time.
Yeah. Yeah. But, it's a growth process, and pretty soon the more you let go of the ego, as you were talking about once before, when we start letting go of what we really want, thinking that we know better than anybody else, including our Creator, that's when things start flowing. And I love that part of the life that I have learned throughout the ages. And every now and then, of course, being human, it does creep up, and you're just going, okay, stop. That's putting everything back on ego, and you're going to get yourself into trouble with that. So it's just my thing of doing. But before we go on, you can, if you have something else, but I do want to start with this one. I have a blog which is called Thoughts for Growth in WordPress, and that's pretty much what you can do at thoughtsforgrowth.wordpress.com. I haven't been putting too much stuff in there, but I started writing a blog just yesterday, I think it was. And one of the things that I put in there, or am actually writing about, is the commonality that exists within not only religions, because there is a commonality between, if not all, most religions, and what really separates us is the details. We worship on this day, or we worship on that day, and we believe this, and you don't believe that, so you're not good, and you're not going to heaven, and we got the truth.
That's
and
brainwashing.
Yeah.
That's the brainwashing you got from the time you were born.
Yeah, but I'm just focusing on the details, because the details is what separates us.
Yeah.
As I even say, now you can look this up in an encyclopedia, how many different Christian denominations are there? Not to be picking on Christians, but it's one of the biggest groups that we can look at.
New religion coming up every day.
Yeah, there is over, at least about 10 years ago, there's over 3,000 different Christian denominations. And every one of them is going, we are the truth.
Yeah.
And I'm going, you understand that through my lifetime, I could never go through each religion one day at a time and choose which one is correct.
I had an aha moment, and I wrote about this in my first book, where it said, you're to love the Lord thy God with all your heart, with all your might, with all your soul,
Yes.
and your neighbor as yourself.
Yes.
That made no sense to me. I was into fundamental religion for 25 years, and that particular verse there used to befuddle me, because, you can't try to love your neighbor. It's not something you try. It's just a natural outpouring, if you will, of what's inside you. And I didn't like myself in those days very well. I was very judgmental of my fellow person in the church. I was very judgmental and watching them constantly, just like they were watching me. We're judgmental of each other, but me, I only can speak for myself. But anyway, when I read that verse, an aha moment happened, because now that I know that I am one with God, and we are the same, and Spirit is saying, love yourself with all your might, with all your soul, with your whole heart, and your neighbor as yourself. That made sense to me. But we've been taught, in my particular denomination, we were taught we needed a Savior outside of ourselves to save us from the bad things we've done, or the wrong things we are doing. And Spirit is saying, no, 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 you're my children. You are little children trying to get it right. You stumble, you fall, you get up and wipe yourself up, and you go on. You learn. You're not bad. You're doing the best you know how with the knowledge that you have at the moment. You're not going to get it in this lifetime. Not everything. You're children. So why do you need to be punished forever in everlasting hell? And who's going to say how good you have to be anywhere else other than in a hell? Hell is a place and a state in this moment. Hell is your life today. And so is heaven. In your choice of the way you're going to live and how you're going to look at yourself as being loved and loved is going to be heaven. If you think you're deserving of hell and undeserving of anything good or love, you're going to be in a hell of your own choosing. It's never a judgment from God. It's our own way of looking at life. We are energy. We are a vibration. And vibration is what draws things to us, not a good or a bad, or that we're being punished. We think when something bad happens, we're being punished. No, no, no. You look at your life. What is happening in your life right now that you're not forgiving? What is it that you're building up in yourself that you need to look at differently? Why are you feeling so bad about yourself? And so suddenly there's a cloud over your head, and you're allowing this stuff to come into you. You're the scriptwriter. You're the producer of your own life. You're never judged by Spirit. Spirit loves. End of story. Loves you, and you are to love yourself and your fellow man. And everybody gets the gospel of oneness. We would not have any problems with, I can't even remember the title of the show that you're having, but we wouldn't have any problem with the rest of the world, because the rest of the world would get on board gradually because of love.
Yeah. You got me thinking about, it's been a long time since I actually read the New Testament, but I think it's 1 Corinthians 13 where it talks about love is and what love isn't. Yeah. But it talks about it more in the positive, because if you're actually wanting your life to be positive, you have to think in positive thoughts, not negative thoughts. It's kind of like what we were talking about before. Worrying is like praying for the things you don't want. So what do you want to do? You always think about the positive things in life. And the biggest thing that I learned along the way, just as you did, which was what love really is. Love isn't always just a feeling. It's not always a feeling, and hear that. It's not always a feeling. What it is, for me at least, is acceptance. I accept Pat for who Pat is, not who I want Pat to be. This is Pat. This is a person that I call proudly my sister. And I adopted her as my sister. I adopted Pat as my sister because, why? She is a very wonderful, sweet person. Does that mean she's exactly like me? No. No, she's not exactly like me. I'm not exactly like her. And we're not trying to change each other. It is we accept each other just as we want to be accepted. We want to accept ourselves. If you can't accept yourself, how are you going to accept someone else? So first you have to love yourself. Accept yourself, then you can love and or accept the other person. Accept them for who they and what they are. They're going through some times and trials and learning things or remembering things, if you prefer, just as you are, just as each and every one of us is. That's my way of explaining love your neighbor as yourself. And I don't mean just your next door neighbor, the person that lives next door to you. The neighbor's the person that's standing next to you at the bus stop or in the subway, or the person that's sitting in the next car over. Whatever. That's your neighbor.
There is a verse in the Bible that talks about it's easy to love the lovable. Mm-hmm. It's more of a challenge to love that one that isn't lovable.
Yep.
And I know there's some listeners who have button pushers in your life. I have to relate to something that just happened to me not long ago. And that was, I really don't have, I'm not in odds with anyone that I could think of, but I had someone that was fairly close to me who did something that was inappropriate and it brought a lot of grief to another loved one. And I had to face this person on a regular basis. And I said, Spirit, I am having a problem with this person. I really want to love this person, but I am really, really at odds with myself over it because of what this one has done. And anyway, and the Spirit says, just allow. You ever know the word? You can't conjure it up. You can't try to do anything. You allow when it's Spirit doing things. So when I was in their presence, I said, okay, Spirit, here we go. I went up to them, I put my arms around them, and there it was. It was there. Genuine and certain. Mm-hmm. It was love.
Yeah.
It was, in my case, a feeling of not being separate from them, but being one with them. And it was magical. It really was.
Mm-hmm.
And so I put that out there because, I'm practical. You have to live this. This has to be lived. It has to make a difference in your life.
Yeah.
Or you might just well put it in the garbage.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you have a button pusher, you want to look at them different, and you've got, you're at odds or you have some grievance against them, you say, Spirit, I'm wanting to allow you to love through me.
Yeah.
And the love has been there ever since.
As I've done in the past, I've told people, you're angry at me, they say, and I go, no. Or you hate me. No. I hate what you did. That doesn't mean that I hate you. You're just an individual. You did something that I don't like, but that has nothing to do with you as an individual.
Well, in this particular case, this person has a mental problem who is a constant problem to people I love.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's ongoing. And so it needed to be resolved so that I wouldn't have this grievance building up in me. Because you can do yourself harm.
Yes.
Not just the other person. Because you're an energy, what you're thinking is going out. And it's affecting your aura and everyone in your space around you. So it has to be resolved. You cannot say to yourself, oh, they don't know what I'm thinking. That is absolutely not true. You are a vibration, and when what you're thinking will come across in your essence, your body language. You don't have to say a word.
Mm-hmm.
You know when people don't like you.
Mm-hmm.
You intuitively know when you're not on the same page with somebody.
Yes.
And on your side, that can be okay. They can be who they are and not like you, and you're okay with it. But in this case, it was something different.
Yeah.
This can be lived. It's absolutely magical, as long as you know who you are and you're loved.
I think what you just spoke about, is a perfect segue into something that I wrote as a note in our first hour. So I'm going to continue your thought with a question here, or at least with a thought that I had back then, which I'm going to bring up now. Is you're talking about something that's ongoing. I was talking more of something that it happened then, and how do I deal with it then, or how did I deal with it then? And you're talking about an ongoing problem. And what I want to bring up in this is the ongoing problems that we have with governments, corporations, and any myriad of things that we can pull up as far as just labeling things. And we can actually narrow this whole idea down to power and money, because politicians and corporations, they're looking for both. They want power and they want money. And to use that, even as you said, they are a reflection of who we are as a society, not as an individual, but as a society, as a group of people. And even using the words you were using before, there's always, we need to fight this, we need to fight this, and it's always the fight, and it's the fight, and it's the fight. And it's kind of like, I think it was Einstein that says you cannot prepare for war and expect peace, something along that line. And so can you put that into the same vein that you were just talking about in how you dealt with this person, or how you deal with this person, whether it's past or present, in an ongoing problem? In other words, can you bring a solution to not only how you're doing this with one individual, but how can we as a society do this to better our own lives and living conditions?
You're not going to change the other person.
Yes.
You're not going to change the government. You can only change how you respond to it and how you, now again, it's about fear and it's about love. So in my case, I was afraid. I was afraid of my own reaction of and reacting in a negative way because I know what that can do. And it wasn't feeling good either. And again, you're a vibration. You're going to attract what you expect. So you expect, you're totally out of control when it has to do with the government. Or when you enter a hospital, you're like on a treadmill. You know, it's all your power is taken away from you.
Mm-hmm.
All you have is spirit to hang on to. Say, this is where I am at, this is what's happening. Now, spirit, you work it out. You have my best interests at heart, and I depend on that. And same with the government. Whatever is happening, you just put it in your Father's hands.
Mm-hmm.
Your big daddy, and you're his child. And when you have that, you build a rapport with spirit. You build that friendship, if you will, that love friendship between the two of you. And you just know when you do that, the best outcome is going to happen for you. You can't change what's happening around you. You can only change what's going on in you. And that change will attract the positive, will attract what you need. And if it's a negative, that's what's happened that you need to see or have happen. There is a verse in the Course in Miracles that says, what would you not accept if you but knew that everything past, present, and to come is planned by ones whose only purpose is your good? If you know that everything happens for good, for your good, then you depend on that and you believe it with your whole heart, then that's what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
The right thing is going to happen for you. That's how I see it. Like I can't change what the government's doing. It's nuts. They're insane. They do things against common sense because it's all about politics, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is no common sense in politics. So you say, you know, this is in your hands. I want it to affect me positively. Now you do it. And you expect God to do the impossible. That's why you're awesome.
Mm-hmm. You reminded me of a guy I knew a long time ago, back in the 1980s, I believe it was. Early 1980s at that. The man I met who was in the hospital where I was working, and he was a patient there. And very nice. He was, I don't know, I would say probably late 50s at that time. I was in my, late 20s. And he had a very gregarious personality, fun to talk with, and we enjoyed talking with each other a lot. And at one point he was telling me, I found out what he was, which was he was a state senator. And I asked him how he got into that. He says, well, actually, I didn't go into politics. It wasn't my desire at a younger age. He says, actually, I wanted to be a brain surgeon. And he says, I got into graduate school as a brain surgeon. He says, my problem is that I have a photographic memory. And I said, that's a problem? He says, well, yeah, I can read something. I can tell you what's on the page. I can tell you what word is in what paragraph and where it's located on the page. The whole bit. He says, but yeah, he's just one of those kind of people. And he said, I got into doing the internship, and I was sitting up here doing an operation, and he goes, I can remember everything that the book told me. He says, my problem was, he says, if I am in the middle of working on somebody's brain and I run across a problem that's not in the book, I couldn't think my way through it.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, I don't have the imagination to go, okay, this is a problem and it's not covered in the book because I can flip through all the pages in my head, but it's not covered in the book. So he says, I decided brain surgery is not something I should really get into because there's always going to be a problem that doesn't arise that's not covered in the book. Mm-hmm. So he says, I looked around. He says, well, okay, what can I do? He says, well, I don't need to think my way through anything in politics, so he went into politics.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's a little bit like our education system. There's a saying that says, everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it's stupid.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
I mean, a fish does what fish does, but it doesn't climb trees.
Yeah.
What it does.
Uh-huh. Yeah. This is also, it's just kind of sidestepping, but there's one of those things that I used to do when I was counseling people was, you say you want to be a millionaire, you want to be rich, you want to be famous. I said, okay, that's fine and dandy if that's what you're really supposed to be. But can you accept the fact that maybe you're not supposed to be that? And if you actually find who you are, and I do mean find who you are as an individual, because you're judging yourself by, I want to be rich and famous like so-and-so. I want to be rich and famous like that person. And it's not really your line of interest. In other words, find what really interests you and how you can use that in the society that you're living in. I don't mean necessarily your community, but in other words, if you live in a certain neighborhood, you might find something for that neighborhood. But if your mind thinks broader, what can you do for that city or that county or for your state, for that whole country that you live in, or maybe as a worldwide thing? You don't know, because Gandhi didn't start out to be the activist that he was. Even what's his name? Somebody asked Albert Einstein, "What's it feel like to be a genius?" And he says, "I don't know. You have to ask Nikola Tesla."
He's already been in skin. He doesn't know
Yeah.
any different. But I would like to add to that is that you're already a millionaire. Millionaire is just a word.
Yeah.
A millionaire means you got money and stuff. What if you got everything? It's just in the cosmos.
Mm-hmm.
And all you have to do is say, I am a millionaire. I am, and instead of using the word a millionaire, I'm abundant.
Yeah.
Right now. Doesn't matter how much you got in your bank account, because you're loved.
Yeah.
By the supreme being, the supreme creator of everything is your Father, and you're his child. You are loved. And you have the access to everything Spirit has. And when you get that relationship going strong enough and you start to really, really walk in it, believe it every day, it changes your life. You don't have to have everything around you, to, satins and gold and diamonds and all the rest of it to prove that. You'll have everything you need.
Yeah.
And it makes quite a difference in how you live your life. You live it with peace and bliss. I love it. Love the word bliss. You have an energetic level, and this is one of the things I learned in my life, and the vibration. The lowest vibration is like 20, and that goes up to over 1,000, which is where the realm of Jesus and bliss is. And in the 20, it's shame is the very lowest of the energies. Then it goes up to grief. Anger is 150. It takes a lot of energy to be angry. 200, a shift happens. 200 to 300, you're open to new possibilities. 400, you're a little more at peace because you're now awakening to the fact that you're loved. 400, 500, you may stumble and fall, but at most of the time you're in bliss. 600, 700, 800, up in the top realms, you're in bliss. Yes, maybe you have moments where you get pulled in by somebody's drama. You're still here to learn. You still got an ego. But if you're living like 70, 80% of your time in bliss, you're up into the the thousands, where nothing outside of you upsets you.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody cuts you off in traffic, that doesn't bother you. Somebody's a little slow at the checkout desk. You just sort of meditate for the moment. You relax into it.
Yeah.
You don't make things a big deal anymore. It really changes your life. This totally, when you start to think different and have a relationship with Spirit, and you know that you're loved, absolutely, positively know it, that you're protected, you're guided, and you're guarded every single day of your life. You start to live that, and you attract that, so that it becomes your experience. Things don't keep happening and you be in dramas and chaos all the time. It may be happening to other people around you, but it doesn't happen to you.
Mm-hmm.
That's what my life is like.
Let me ask you something a little different.
Okay.
There is a thought that we were talking about in the first hour, and I'm going to circle back to that with a little different twist. And this twist goes like this. We, as, well, people like you and I with big hearts, and I'm saying that with big hearts on purpose, because if you're just looking at the world and just going, this is going on and it's pissing me off and I'm angry and yeah, well, that's not big-hearted. That is just your ego and your desire to control. Then you're the one who's willing to fight. Okay, I'm not talking about fighting, but there is a thought that keeps coming into my mind, and I've had my answers, but I'm not going to share those answers with us at this moment. The thought that I have in mind is that you look at the world, and we see, as you said earlier, people are killing each other all over the world, not just in Syria, not in the Middle East or Africa or wherever
right in our own city.
Yeah, in your own cities, wherever. You're looking at the world and just going, man, I am really getting sick and tired of this. How do I change it? And so far we've been talking about how to bring about change in your personal life and to a certain degree in your, I will say, immediate area. Okay, maybe a little stretch, but it goes a little bit further than that. How do you see or visualize the thing that we were talking about before? Time is circular, or it comes in cycles. And understanding that, as I said, from what I got, if you want to call it that, it was channeled information, that we're in that time of where Rome was falling, way back when. And we're going through the same thing, just differently, because, as you said earlier, we have technology and things that didn't exist back in the Roman times, but that is not the mark of humanity. Humanity is marked by its ability to care and love and take care of each other, or how we actually are so brutal to each other, as we all tend to focus on one way or another. And within your levels of bliss and understanding that our Creator has His own plans, and how do we fit into that with what is going on, and how we actually make a better life, not only for ourselves, but those who, well, let's not say just around us, because we already talked about how energy can be sent anywhere on our planet or even outside of it.
It comes from knowing that it's mass consciousness, okay? The shift that's happening is mass consciousness. And when I was younger, one of the mass consciousnesses, you had no choice. Life just lived you.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't realize that we had any power at all. We lived our life, and rather it lived us. Things happened. And that's, people kept saying, well, things happen. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Well, that isn't just the way it is. You're a vibration. You attract it. It's a law. Now they know about the law of attraction. For the first time, we know we do have choice. We know we're the vibration that's causing all the problems. It's not our neighbor. It's us. And and we are our neighbor. And when we start to get the love message for ourselves, just like when we learned about different things in life, it becomes the mass consciousness. Like, for instance, we did not know anything about the computers just a few years ago, very short years ago. Mm-hmm. We didn't know things about, like, chlorophyll. I remember when that word first came out, we didn't even know what it was.
Yeah.
And now it's like ludicrous to even mention it because we all know what it is. It's the new words in our system right now. It becomes a part of our consciousness. We didn't even know what texting was. I mean, now everybody's texting each other.
Yep.
They've got to have laws about it. We never had to have that before because it was never in the world. It becomes a mass consciousness. What if mass consciousness becomes you love yourself? Love yourself and love each other because we're all one. If you do something to another person, you're actually doing it to yourself. What if that was the mass consciousness? That would make a difference. It wouldn't be a repeat of history because there is a new consciousness, a new understanding today that you have a will and you have a choice where we never knew we had a choice before. And not all due respect to religions, but they've put a lot of fear on us, a fear about sin and being bad and being good and all the rest of it. You're a child. You're learning. You're doing the best you know how. Certainly there's people who are killing people, but you can't kill people. People don't die. They go from one dimension to another. Try as you will, you can take your own life. You're going to have to come back and do it over again. That's all. You know?
Indeed.
Really, it comes down to what the mass consciousness is thinking. So, I mean, if you keep feeding the world all the TV shows that they're watching of terror and killing and bloodshed and all the rest of it, it becomes a part of the mass consciousness. But then sometimes they do go overboard, and it gets to be so many people that say there's got to be a better thing that they turn the TV off and they they start watching something else, you know, or a movie that's family oriented, you know. And like right now, the mass consciousness I sense is getting your diet corrected, getting away from the GMOs and the stuff that they're putting in their food to save it, give it a longer shelf life. They're getting into natural foods from nature. That's what I'm feeling, where the mass consciousness is going. Get the body feeling good. Mm-hmm. So the spirit that's living in the vessel can operate and not be deteriorating.
Yeah, I've met a few people in my lifetime. One who several years ago used to say, I will eat any food that you put in front of me. In other words, if it was considered food, he would eat it. He didn't care.
Yeah.
Now he seems to be going more for the healthy foods. And, well, there's a lot of things that I'm noticing about other people as well as myself. I'm not judging other people, but just observations from people, GMOs and how to live better. Not too many people seem to be getting on to what you and I have been talking about for the last almost 2 hours. But at least not openly. And I think it's probably not openly because, as we've said many times throughout this interview so far, is that people probably still, well, I know people do. People have this thing about, oh, you're talking about this stuff. Oh, you're a little bit of Looney Tune, aren't you? Or you're very different, or you're strange. And I tell you something straightforward, folks. I like being, if this is what you call strange, I love being strange.
Well, I just simply say to them, how's your life working for you?
Yeah.
You know, I can only go by my own self, and my life's pretty blissful, pretty peaceful, and it doesn't mean I've got things that are perfect going on around me. It's the way I think.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, life is going to go from point A to point B. It's how you live in between. The dash between when you were born and when you die is the important part, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, how I eat And it's not saying that what they're doing with the GMOs and all that. I never judged it as being bad. I just judged it observed the fact that people are getting on board with getting healthier because of the GMOs.
Mm-hmm.
So is it a bad thing or is it a good thing? No, it's neither. It's neither.
Yeah.
It's just an awakening. The more things you're awakened to in your government, in your educational system, in your health system, is not a bad thing. It's awakening people. The unraveling is waking you up.
Indeed. Now, Pat, before we close the show, we've still got about 10 minutes to go.
Wow.
So, wow,
Where
she
should I
says.
go?
I think it's a little bit more than 10, but anyway, let me ask you something, because it just popped into my mind, and what I'm getting at here, folks, is Pat and I have been friends for quite some time. It seems almost like a lifetime just because we just hit it off so quick and easy, and we've got so much in common. You mentioned earlier that you were in a fundamentalist religion, fundamentalist being Christian, for 25 years, I believe you said.
Yeah.
And what I remember of fundamentalist Christianity, because my mother is in one of those religions, and I have a lot of friends and family are still in it. Fundamentalism, for those of you who may not know, is basically, the way I'm going to put it, is that it's really based on conformity. As Pat says, I'm paying attention to what the other person was doing, and I'm critical of what that person was doing. And if you're one of those who's a proselytizing fundamentalist, you're always telling somebody else what they should do, how they should live their life, what they should believe in, what they shouldn't do, etc., etc., etc. Now, since you left that, and I don't know how long ago it was, and right now it's not really that important, but first of all, just as a yes or no answer, do you still have any contacts with people that you knew back then?
Strangely enough, 25 years in that, I didn't have one friend who came to me afterwards. I've got friends coming out of my yin-yang now. I can call any one of them anytime. And they love me unconditionally, and I love them the same way. We were in such judgment of each other, and always constantly under the guise that we wanted them to be like Jesus, if you will. And you were always in a state of fear of doing the right or the wrong thing. So you were constantly had your fingers, or at least I did, my fingers on the pulse of another person, making sure that they were walking the straight and narrow and not backsliding, we used to call it. And one of the verses in the Bible was, "Be ye not unequally yoked with unbelievers." So I have relatives who are into fundamentalism who will not have anything to do with me, merely because I no longer think of my need for an outside savior. Jesus said, "Get up off your knees, don't worship me. It's the kingdom of God is within you. Greater things shall you do than I do, because I go to my Father." So those were always puzzlements to me, because Jesus said you can be and do what I do. And so long as I was thinking as myself as a dirty, rotten sinner needing to be saved, I never could do that. I never could feel that I was in that place where I was invincible, if you will, because I didn't have a personal attachment and knowing that I was a part of God. I'm not the ocean called God. I'm the drop in the ocean. We are one. There's a difference. Because, she thinks she's God. No. I'm a part of God, and God's a part of me. We are one. That's why we can love unconditionally. Everyone that's listening into the show is a part of that ocean. Every one of you. You're all loved, just as I am. You can all do the same thing. I have a friend, and we've kind of parted ways because she would look at me and wanted to be like me, wanted to have what I have, and not realizing she is the child of God and capable of doing anything she wants. She's not to walk my walk. She's to walk her own purpose, not my purpose. And so long as she was with me, she was always wanting to be other than herself. You know, it wasn't healthy.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many people are listening to this show that feel that way. You know, they're in odds with other people who they think have more than they have. That is the ego talking. An ego thinks they're separate. Ego thinks they need to be better than, or they feel that they're not good as. So that's what it was like when I was in religion. I was never good enough. And Spirit says, you are perfect as I made you, right now. You're peeling the onion and getting to the core of your perfection. As I speak, you're doing that. I've been doing this since 1984.
I like the way you said that at the end just there, because people always say, well, nobody's perfect. And I go, I'm perfect. I'm perfectly me for who I'm supposed to be right now.
Yeah. But you're getting to the core of your perfection. That's why when you hear truth, the truth within your core understands it. You say, yeah, I know that. I know it. You know that you're loved. The people that are listening right now, you know you're loved. It's you that don't love you.
Yep.
You got to fall in love with you so that you can love your neighbor as you.
Yeah, and you can't give what you don't have.
Yeah, and then once we all get that, can you see how that would change the world?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, one person at a time.
Now, one thing I do want to bring up as a closing thought, and there's no need to rush through it. We have the time for it. But one of the things that I want you to address here is this. When you left, and as you said, people looked at you, and using my own wording here, she's strange, she believes this, and we don't understand. I'm saying that because I asked a guy that I grew up with a long time ago, I said, why do people that we grew up with, why do they look at me so seriously? It's not that they don't like you, they just don't understand how you live your life and what you believe and how you translate that into your life. And that's where I started coming up with, I am crazy, but I am not stupid. Crazy for me just means I can have fun while everybody else is going, what the heck is he doing?
Well, you know, I like to live my life like, and too bad this person wants to be like me, don't think that they can be. But I like the fact that they want what I have, which is peace.
Uh-huh.
Because until you want peace, you're not going to even look for it or even ask for it.
Yeah.
And if you want to know where you get it from Spirit. That's where I get mine.
Yeah. And something else I did, it was actually just this year. I sent out a letter to a few people, family and friends, just telling them in very short terms, because it ended up being a 4-page letter.
Knowing you it would be.
Yeah, I did get long-winded on it. But actually, I just spelled it out for them because there's some people that they can't understand the simple thoughts. So they had to explain it. So I did. I didn't plan on it for being more than maybe a page and a quarter, second page for signature and goodbye. But actually, what I ended up doing was just telling people, listen, I love you as a person, and if I ever see you again in person, I'll be glad to speak to you very nicely. No problem. Even have a conversation with you. But my life is mine, and if you want to judge me for my life and the way that I live it, then that's where we have to part company. And since a great deal of you are looking at me and never asked me, why do you see things this way? Why do you do things that way? You just made your own assumptions and turned me off or cut me off. Then I say thank you for the friendship and goodbye. In other words, what I was doing was saying goodbye to them friendly, but not closing the door and locking it. Kind of leaving it ajar. Mm-hmm. But as long as you want to criticize me and never ask what it is about me that makes me different, why do I see things the way that I do, then I'm crazy, I'm not stupid, but I'm enjoying my life over here, and I'll be glad to tell you about it, but I will never come to you and go, you ought to do this, or, as you say, because ought and should are pretty much the same word.
Can I give you a very short line for that whole message?
Yeah.
That because it will strike the truth within them.
Mm-hmm.
You won't be defending yourself. But I have a relative who happens to be in the ministry who was, on my case, believing that I don't love Jesus anymore. And, of course, I love God more now than I ever did in my whole life.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, they don't understand that. I understand that people who look at me and my differences are afraid. Mm-hmm. They have fear. And this particular person would be fearing for me as a person who is on the wrong path and in their belief system, and I'm going to hell. Okay? That's their belief. So I asked Spirit, I said, how am I going to answer this person, not get into a scriptural battle? And this is the words that came. Say these words. Very short. You can say that to anybody who disagrees with you. Your judgment of me separates us. That's all you have to say.
Works.
Your judgment of me separates us. And so long as they'll reason within themselves, so long as they do that, they're going to separate you, not in actual fact, by your essence, by your thinking. And since then, that happened quite a while back, he's more on the same page now than he ever was, even though he's still in the ministry. He has got a dilemma now. He's thinking more like me, and now he has to preach a different gospel, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's going to mean his ministry and his source of income, he's not in his integrity.
Mm-hmm.
So that's his dilemma, not mine. Because, you see the truth, and the truth sets you free. But if you're going to let money hold you back, or your profession hold you back, because it goes against, or you have to teach something different, because your thinking is different, then you are not in your integrity.
I thought of what you just said, using it for so many different ways, even for those who get stopped by an irate police officer and he's yelling and screaming at them. First of all, you never yell and scream back at a police officer because he thinks he has a gun. Well, he knows he has a gun. He knows you know he has a gun, and you're going to yell at him? Oh, he's already just kind of like, oh, you're really stupid, aren't you? No, talk to them calmly. And I like the way you said that. How did you put that?
Your judgment of me separates us.
Yeah. I would love to see a police officer. I don't want to say that for myself because I don't want to have a confrontation with a police officer. But
immediately people will say, what do you say in such and such a situation? What do you do in this situation? Well, no, I've got something else I'm going to run by you. And then they'll give me their big scenario, their big story. And I said, look, every situation is different. All you need to do is ask. You have a great friend who knows the answer to every single thing. Uh-huh. Your problems are solved. You just ask. In a minute, like I'm in a group, and I never know how to answer anything. I say, Spirit, I don't know how to answer this. Same as when I'm talking to you. I didn't know what we were going to be talking about tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Yet you didn't give me anything you were going to run by me. I said, okay, Spirit, give me the answer to this. I don't know what to say. Uh-huh. And it just comes out.
Yes, indeed.
So what you're hearing right now is from my higher self.
Yeah, exactly.
And it just comes out in gushes automatically and not really thought through. And when you're talking to a police officer, you just say, okay, I'm in a dilemma here, Spirit. Please give me the right words. Speak it through. And it'll suddenly occur to you what to say.
Exactly.
Sure.
I would love to make some more comments on that one, but we just now ran out of time. Pat, my dear sister, thank you very much for accepting and being a part of the show today. We're definitely going to have you back on in the not-too-distant future.
Okay.
And next time you can pick the subject.
No, I like it when you do that.
Okay, fine. That's
fine.
Cool.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for you sharing your wisdom, your knowledge, and your experience, in case I didn't say that before. Anyway, thank you for being here. And once again, and I definitely want you to say your book again, because I like the way you say it. But her first book is Love's Voice Changes You, and
Hello, awesome.
there you
Book
go.
2.
Also, you have a website. Why don't you give us that website address?
patspatters.com. www.patspatters.com.
Alrighty. And everyone, thank you for being part of our show today. And we'll see you again next week. And we may continue this subject on then, but we'll continue it on in the future, and not too distant future as well. I do have someone else who's lined up to talk about this from his perspective. So anyway, take care, be well, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Thank you for being a part of our listening audience. Stay informed of what's happening at K Wave6Radio at www.kwave6radio.tk. That's www.kwave6radio.tk. All the best for you and yours.